Well, welcome to session 2 of I Choose Peace. You know, we all want peace, but if there's one area I think we all struggle with is worry or anxiety.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is a nutty place, and whether it's in our home or work or circumstances, and we're going to hear some teaching about how to address that. And part of it is when worry knocks on the door of your heart, the big answer is prayer. But praying, Dave, is a pretty threatening thing, especially if you're kind of not used to doing that. Maybe give us some insight and tips about how can that work in a group?
You bet. So for those of you who are new, again, like I said last week, no pressure. Don't feel like, oh, I've got to pray. It's prayer time. What do I say? It's easy to get all worked up over that if you're not used to praying out loud, and it's okay. Just relax, enjoy it. You can pray silently, or if you feel led, you can just jump in and pray a sentence. So let me just kind of frame this a little bit. First of all, prayer is just simply conversation with God. It doesn't have to have flowery language, the these or the thous that maybe you heard your grandfather pray with. But in conversation with God, I don't understand this, but prayer changes things.
Yes, it does.
The Bible it tells us to pray, and I've seen in my life and in others' lives that when we lean into prayer and we go to God and we lift up needs and requests, He answers. And that's a miracle in and of itself, and I love that. So just keep that in mind as you pray in the group. Another thought there is, as you pray in a group, don't pray long prayers. I think that's one thing that kills.
That's a killer.
Group prayer, especially if it's long, flowery language of
hitherto unto thine divine majesty and all that.
But just conversational.
Yeah.
And it can be a sentence, it can be a minute. It doesn't have to be long. So keep them short. Pray loud enough so everybody can hear. And don't preach to each other in your prayers. Just keep it focused on God.
If you're brand new, I just, sometimes I didn't grow up as a Christian or a pastor, and I came to know the Lord in a little college ministry, and I remember there was not a bunch of people. I bet it was 6 months. I was scared to death to open my mouth, and I didn't know how. And this is really helpful that there's no pressure, that you can use normal language. And that it's not what other people think. I think one of the hard things in a group is making sure I'm really talking to God. And especially for older Christians. You know, Bob's here, and what Bob really needs to hear is, so thanks, Dave. This is really helpful.
You bet. Let me just share one other thing. Sometimes I've been in groups where everybody shares prayer requests, and you take 20 minutes to share requests, and then you pray for 2 minutes. Let me suggest, instead of sharing those requests, to just start praying. Have one person just pray your request out to God, and you don't have to tell the whole story in your prayer either. Just pray for what you believe God can do in that situation. Pray in faith positively, and then somebody else can jump in and agree with you in prayer and pray for that thing, and then somebody else can pray. And that way you're going to get right to the matter of prayer and pray those things that are significant. So enjoy your time in your group today, and our hope is that you will take some time to pray together and lift one another up in prayer and kick anxiety out the door.
Amen.
Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus.
Welcome to session 2 of I Choose Peace. We're going to look at Philippians chapter 4, as you've just read, verses 6 and 7. And it's not a very long passage, but it sure is packed. It talks about anxiety. How do you choose peace in moments of anxiety? And I just think we just get this out. I mean, we all struggle with worry, right? We all struggle with being anxious. I mean, we're anxious about our health, anxious about we hear stuff on the news, anxious about the future. In fact, I love the definition, the root word of anxiety. It comes from a German word to choke, and then it has this idea of being mentally strangled. It's like your mind gets pulled in different directions, and these things go over and over and over in your mind. And as we talked about, anxiety is rooted in probably 2 or 3 major things. One, it's a fear of the future. Almost all of anxiety is rooted in the what about, what if? I mean, a terrorist attack, or what if I don't find the right person, or will I have enough money, or what will the biopsy report be, or, am I being a good parent? We just can get overwhelmed. And I think this is honestly a sin because we're commanded not to be anxious, that we kind of give each other a pass on. Since we all do it, yeah. And here's what I want you to know. Jesus made this incredible promise and he paid this incredible price. And he told us there's going to be difficulty and tribulation. But then he said, my peace I give to you, my shalom. It's more than just emotional peace. The sense of well-being, the sense of it is well with your soul, the sense that it's going to be okay because I'm a good God, I'm a sovereign God, I'm an all-powerful God. And so as we kind of learned, when anxiety knocks on the door of your heart, or in my case, on the digital clock at 1:15, 2:07, 3:06, 4:04, right? I mean, when anxiety hits, my mind goes, I wake up. Personally, my stomach starts to turn. So the question is, how can I choose peace in moments of anxiety? And it's very interesting that this passage is very, very clear. He gives us a command. There's a negative one and a positive one. And then he gives us a promise that allows us to experience it. The negative command here literally is stop worrying. Stop worrying about anything. I mean, just stop it. Easier said than done. So what's the positive command? In everything. And then we went through these key words on prayer. So let me just give you a little review. And I want to encourage you, even in your group, try praying this way. He says, worship and adoration by prayer, petition, thanksgiving, make your requests known. And by way of review, prayer, it's literally, I'm feeling worried, right? Remember? And I just turn my attention to God. I'm just turning my attention to God. Who is God? Remember who he is, what he's done, what are his promises. Second, it's petition. What's my need? I mean, let's get out of, it just keeps going over and over in my mind. And what if. It's, okay, Lord, here's my concern. It's about my husband. Here's my concern. It's about the biopsy report. Here's my concern, about the tension at work. Here's my concern about our finances. I'm turning to you, an almighty, all-powerful, and I'm going to worship you. Second, here's my specific need. We won't have enough to pay for the mortgage. I'm fearful down deep that I'll be single the rest of my life. My supervisor is, right? But you bring that specific need. And then third, with thanksgiving, where you begin to, by faith, you choose to thank God. By the way, Lord, thank you that I do have a job. Thank you that, actually, I've got 3 kids and 2 of them are doing very well. Thank you very much that, right? And you begin to thank God for what you do have. And then finally, requests, where you actually outline your specific needs. I remember reading as a young Christian in a book, and the guy said something along the lines of, if you pray general prayers, that's probably all you're going to get is general answers, and you'll never know whether God's showing up. What do you really need? I actually write out my prayers at times. When I'm anxious, one of the things I do is I take my anxiety and I just flip it. And so maybe I'm uptight about teaching a series or uptight about having a tough conversation. And I'll literally write in my little journal, Lord, I pray for the grace and the power to be courageous and kind and loving in this conversation. I'm taking my cares and my anxieties and I cast it on God. And then I'm telling him very, very specifically, these are my concerns. I'm thanking you in advance, but this is what I want you to do. And then we have this amazing promise, the peace of God that surpasses mental capacity, human understanding. And then I love this. It's a picture of the sentry who will guard your heart. Notice your heart where you're vulnerable, your emotions, and your mind in Christ Jesus. In essence, developing the practice that when anxiety knocks on the door of your life, let prayer answer the door. Let me give you one little tip that I think has been a lifesaver for me. How you go to bed and how you wake up can really be a complete game changer in terms of your levels of anxiety. What I learned, both by research and experience, is what you put in or allow into your mind, your subconscious will take. I try to go to bed not looking at screens. I try to read something positive, even if it's only 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then when you first wake up, before you start with, oh my gosh, I wonder what the stock market is. Oh, I've got this meeting, I've got this, I've got that. if you can find some little short passage, mine is the Lord's Prayer and Psalm 23. And before I get out of bed, most mornings, my mind starts to, what about, I just literally lay in bed and I whisper, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. And phrase by phrase, and I just want to start my day doing exactly what this says. And then I get up and I say, okay, and all good, all powerful God, by your grace and your power, I'm going to choose peace rather than worry. And so as you start your discussion, here's the question. What's the top 2 things or 3 things that you personally get anxious about? I mean, they're probably going to be pretty common, but just, at whatever level you're comfortable, what's a couple things that tend to cause the anxiety monster to pop up in your life? If you're facilitating the group, why don't you start this week and we'll let others chime in.